book starts off with Bryson explaining his curiosity about the Appalachian Trail near his house. He and his old friend Stephen Katz start hiking the trail from Georgia in the south and shortly realize how difficult it truly is. After hiking for what seemed to him a large distance, they realize they have still barely begun while in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and that the whole thing is simply too much for them. They end up skipping a huge part of the trail, mainly because Bill does not want to be down south anymore. So they begin the hike again in Virginia and try to hike only on easier terrain. This section of the hike finally ends after nearly 800 miles of hiking, with Bryson going on a book tour and Katz returning to Des Moines, Iowa to work. In the following months, Bill goes back at the Appalachian Trail and visits Centralia, Pennsylvania, the site of a coal seam fire, and eventually reunites with Katz to hike the 100-mile wilderness in Maine, which again proves too daunting. At the end of it all, the most important part to them was that they tried. The book, A Walk in the Woods, written by Bill Bryson, shows the culture that the wilderness has to America, but also shows how they do not do their part in keeping it safe, as the forests are getting in danger. Quote, the first people to venture deep into the woods from the east, the Indians, of course had their perhaps as much 20,000 years before them, weren't looking for prehistoric creatures or passages to the west or new lands to settle. They were looking for plants. America's botanical possibilities excited Europeans inordinately, and there was both glory and money to be made in the woods. The eastern woods teemed with flora unknown to the old world, and there was a huge eagerness from scientists and amateur enthusiasts alike to get a piece of it. These and hundreds more were collected in the American woods, shipped across the ocean to England, France, and Russia, and received with greedy keenness and trembling fingers. Page 73, Bryson. Bryson shows us the possibilities were endless in those times. Commonly, we think of the wilderness as an original condition, the existing condition of the North American continent before its settlement by Europeans. The very existence of the unsettled land presented the possibility of creating a different cultural and moral landscape from that of settled Europe. Many 19th century Americans attached equal significance to its preservation. In both cases, wilderness is understood as an opportunity to remake or reinvent self and culture. Quote, but come off the trail, properly off, and drive somewhere, as we did now, and you realize how minimally deluded you have been. Here, the mountains and the woods were just backdrop, familiar no nearby, but no more consequential, or notice that the clouds that scud across their ridge lines. Here the real business was up close and on top of you. Gas stations, Walmarts, Kmarts, Dunkin' Donuts, blockbuster videos, a ceaseless unfolding pageant of commercial hideousness. Page 83, Bryson. The American culture is all about business and less about nature. It all started with the wilderness, drawing in the people to come, but it ended off with more businesses and economics for the American culture. Quote, in 1987, the Forest Service casually announced that it would allow private timber interests to remove hundreds of acres of wood a year from the venerable and verdant Pisgah National Forest, next door to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, and that 80% of that would be through what is called scientific forestry, clear-cutting, which is not only a brutal visual affront to any landscape, but brings huge, reckless wash-offs that gully the soul, rubbing of nutrients and disrupting ecologies further downstream, sometimes for miles. This isn't science, it's rape. End quote, page 40, Bryson. The effect of the American people where once settlers have damaged their forests by clear-cutting without thinking of the repercussions. This deforestation has increased the rate of climate change and killing off more of the wilderness because of it. To end this off with a good quote on the book, all of American today people would be dragging themselves to work, stuck in traffic jams, weathered in exhaust smoke. I was going for a walk in the woods. Bryson, page 31.